So today we're talking about all about optimizing the mobile experience and your campaigns that are on mobile or that are even just beginning on mobile and leading into other channels. We're going to get into that. We'll start off with our intros, just so you know who you're hearing from. You have myself from the Justuno perspective. At Justuno, we are all about the on-site experience and converting someone, whether that be converting them into a subscriber or into someone that's actually giving you money for an exchange of a product or service. We're getting them to the next step with pop-ups on your website. And these aren't kind of just the pop-ups maybe you see on a blog, on a recipe blog. They're very much focused on user behavior, intent, and then all of that sweet data that you have about them, like their birthday or their shopping preferences. So I'll be speaking from that point of view and then moderating us throughout the webinar. I'll throw it over to Sean. Can we get an intro, please?
Yeah, of course. I'm Sean from Lucky Orange. Lucky Orange is conversion rate optimization tools, specifically behavioral analytics to help you understand what visitors are doing on your site. So heat maps, session recording, surveys, all kinds of stuff like that to help you make better testing and optimization decisions and understand what's working and what is not working on your site.
Oh yeah, the ultimate people watching tool, but not directly.
Spooky.
Yeah, a little spooky, a little bit. Jason, can we get an intro, please?
Absolutely. My name is Jason and I'm from Anzen. We're a customer journey agency and we specialize in supporting brands to build out kind of automated journeys via using email and SMS. So think platforms like Klaviyo, Digital, things like that to help you make the most out of email and SMS. And Justuno, of course.
And Justuno, yeah, that's all about like that step one into getting someone into all of your own channels. Yeah. I love that. Excited to hear from you, Jason. Maggie, can we get an intro, please?
Yes. Hi, everyone. I'm Maggie. I'm on the product marketing team at Iterable, and I've been at Iterable for just about a year. So a little about us, if you're not familiar, we are a cross-channel marketing platform that helps brands like you all activate your customer data to help deliver joy to your customers across a variety of different channels. So think like email, SMS, in-app, and more. And some of the brands we work with are Ipsy, Gloriana, and Joybird, to name a few, if you all are familiar with those brands. And super excited to be here today to speak with you all. So thanks for having me.
Yes, we have, if you couldn't tell, guys, it's all about data and how we can use that everywhere. Joe, can we get an intro from you, please?
Hey everyone, how you doing? Thanks for joining us today. And SJ, thank you so much for organizing this. My name's Joe Fox. I'm the SVP of Partnerships at GrowWave. GrowWave is a reviews, loyalty, wish list management system. We work with over 14,000 brands, specifically in the Shopify and Shopify Plus space. And we've got some big brands such as Lego. On the headphones component, I'm disappointed you guys didn't buy Sony because that's one of our merchants. Also Logitech as well, as a lot of medium and small size up and coming businesses.
Oh, that's awesome. So you're pulling from a lot of different strategies that kind of like the bigger guns may be using, right?
Definitely. And I think the really cool thing is they can be applied to every brand of all size. It's just about where they're starting out in that loyalty and reviews journey.
I gotcha. And I will say I am Logitech mouse here. I love it. No wrist pain at all. I switched like a year and a half ago and I'll never go back.
Love to hear it. Love to hear it.
And then Tina, can you wrap us up, please, for intros?
Of course. Hey, everyone. I'm Tina, and I'm the head of marketing at Simple Bundles. Simple Bundles is an app working with over 13,000 Shopify and Shopify Plus brands, and we specialize in breaking bundles down into individual SKUs so that the shipping, inventory management is much more streamlined, as well as bypassing Shopify's 100 variant limits. So we have folks with thousands, millions of bundle variants, which is very interesting. And then also the founder of my own agency called Content Curve, where I work with SaaS companies and D2C brands on content strategy and marketing.
Oh yeah, so much good to share with us today, guys. Thank you so much for the intros. We'll get into our agenda now, what we can expect to talk about. We're going to get into engagement, mobile focused, of course, and then getting into AOV, the part that plays, into our bouncers, and not like from the bar or anything. The bouncers, those that are leaving our site and aren't getting any kind of engagement at all. And then we're getting into ROAS as a priority. I think that's fitting given we are a little ways out from executing our Black Friday Cyber Monday plan. So always keep that in mind with your questions too, if you want us to get more into holiday stuff. Coolio. So let's get started. We've got our first theme here. Let me make sure I'm on the right theme. Cool. So if we are seeing consistent low engagement rate, maybe that's click-throughs, clicks in general, to subscribe, we want to know how and where do we incorporate upselling strategies on mobile that aren't annoying. And when you think about annoying, that could be just like causing a lot of friction. It's not easy to close. And I would say from the Justuno perspective, when we think about on-site and coming from mobile, not having that much space to deal with, whenever we think about upselling strategies, it can be more based off of user behavior. So not necessarily showing something like as an immediate upsell if someone is arriving on mobile, but if they are, traveling a certain amount of pages and have viewed X product, that could be something that triggers your upselling strategy. And I think with mobile, it's like you have such limited time and space to actually show or to meet the expectation of what the CTA is. So this kind of upselling strategy maybe waits a little bit more for their direction, or if anything, it incorporates embedded experiences whenever you're upselling, which we'll get into later today too. I would love to throw it to the Lucky Orange team. Sean, what are you thinking on this one?
Yeah, I think when I think of low engagement, I immediately start with something that I'll probably harp on a couple times today, which is usability. And really what I mean by that is like, if people can't figure out how to use your site, they can't buy from you. And so maybe that's why your engagement is low. When people come to a website, they have expectations of how it's going to work. And that's shaped by all the other websites they've ever visited in their entire life. And all the other things they've done on desktop even translate to the experience they expect on mobile. And so what we can really look to is like, okay, well, what do they expect to be happening on this site based on just how a website works? Those expectations really turn into usability requirements. And then on the website, we can translate those into experiences with search and menus and nav and buttons and categories and all these things to say, here's how these expectations turn into something that we just have to do to make the website usable. I would also say if we're talking about specific pages and we're talking about specific collections pages, whatever it might be, if they're on that page and you're trying to get them to engage with something and they're not doing it, well, they're doing something else on the page. And so what are they engaging with and what are they distracted by maybe? And so a lot of times with Lucky Orange tool specifically, we can look at a heat map and say, okay, well, what's getting the attention? If it's not the button, is it a drop-down menu? Is it something else that they're paying attention to that we would prefer they would pay attention to, our ultimate engagement goal? So I would look at what they are engaging with if they're not engaging with what you want them to be on. And then kind of shifting into like the upsell side of things, really where I would start is to think about segmentation. So segmentation for me is like a big theme that applies to any sort of analysis, but really, we're looking to not paint with too broad of a stroke for an upsell offer. And so if we're running Facebook ads or if we're running LinkedIn ads or whatever it might be coming to a specific page, how can we upsell for that specific audience in a way that makes sense for that specific audience? If they're returning shoppers, it's going to be different than they're for a new group. So making sure that the offer and the experience aligns with the expectation, not only from a usability standpoint, but specifically when it comes to upselling the actual offer we're making to them. Making sure that it aligns with something that they might be expecting to get, whatever their situation is in. And I would say on segmentation, it's super duper easy just with like personalization to get overly complicated at the start. Start big, start broad, and then go from there as you find success with different little tweaks and segments.
Great insight, Sean. You mentioned something about like the upsell and with the segments. And I think when you are trying to personalize, it's like, yeah, there's like what you're going to recommend, right? But then it's also like, what are you combining that upsell strategy with? Is it an educational piece where you're kind of showing them, steps to use, and then this is what we're using? Is it more influencer based? Like so-and-so influencer has these benefits based off of using this array of products. So it's like adding in that bit of social proof with these product recommendations and kind of like giving that recommendation a layer can also make it a little bit more impactful. And especially on mobile, when again, we're trying to kind of relay a message really quickly. So I know that can feel like the opposite side of maybe you don't want to show them too much. But to your point of personalization and delivering something that is expected but is different from desktop is a little scary, but I would say you can always test that against a control group if that is something you're a little weary to test out, and like combining something else with an upsell message.
Yeah,
I
totally.
also, yeah, I also love what you were saying about desktop, and it does have its natural influence on mobile. Do you typically see brands having like a totally different setup on mobile navigation versus desktop, or is it pretty similar with minor tweaks?
I would say the latter because it gets super hard to manage and test and pay attention to if you've got something vastly different.
Yeah.
You know, I do think some brands sleep on their desktop sites and overlook the need for that just because they think we have the majority of traffic happening on mobile. Like, okay, well, look to see if you've got similar traffic coming to desktop. I mean, it's still people coming to your website. And so, yeah, I think that for the most part, there might be a reorder, there might be a different categorization method or something, but keep it simple. And
Nice. Okay.
and stop using category names that don't mean anything in your nav on mobile because people don't know what they mean.
If it's like more of that internal lingo or
Side
something.
note, yeah,
Yeah,
yeah.
I can get you. Side note. I love that. Please don't do that, guys. Excellent. Let's take it over to Jason. What are your thoughts on this one?
Yeah, I mean, I agree with a lot of what Sean was saying there. I think as a kind of interesting example in the chat, um, someone had just mentioned, actually, Katie, I think, just mentioned that she shopped on mobile because she was looking at a brand's desktop site and they didn't have a search function that worked on the desktop side. So she had to go to the mobile side to make it work, which is such a classic, mistake that you can make as a merchant. You just tunnel visioned on mobile, you're adding an app, probably spent hours setting it up, making sure that app mobile experience looked good on mobile, and then completely missed the desktop. And not everyone is going to make the effort to look at the site in a different format and see if it works. Rather than punching that search bar into mobile, they might just punch it into Google instead and buy it from one of your competitors. So thinking about both is definitely important. But I'd say in terms of mobile, when it comes to engagement rate, interestingly, we've seen a real increase in the number of people that are engaging with quizzes these days. So we've been working with brands a lot to think about what does that on-site experience look like on mobile, whether that's someone landing on your homepage. Can we get them into a funnel that asks them a few quick questions that can almost feel like you're replicating that in-store experience? Retail is coming back, and it's very interesting to see people coming out of a couple of years where they couldn't really shop in retail, really gravitating back towards those interactions and the ability to see a product and talk to someone in store about a product. And quizzes give you an ability to sort of replicate that experience online when it comes to personalization. It allows you to ask some key questions and then get people to the right products in your catalog really quickly. And that can be a very kind of not just engaging experience for someone, but like a rewarding experience for them as well. They feel like, okay, I've been able to cut through and get to what I want. But then obviously on the brand side, it gives you a really a treasure trove of first party data about maybe what size of product they want, what type of cuts they prefer, colors that they might like, sizes that they're looking for. All of that information becomes really practical to use, whether or not they purchase right away, or you need something like a welcome series to convert them that you can personalize, or if they place their first order, how are we going to personalize that follow-up sequence to make sure that they place their second. So things like that we've seen is a really effective way to increase engagement rate. And then the other thing I'd touch on is something similar to what Sean was saying around looking at kind of segmenting the data that's coming in. So we'll often work with brands if they have a bit of a diverse product catalog and they might have different ad campaigns that they're running for those different products. What does that on-site pop up or fly out form look like to align with those different audiences? If you have kids clothing on your website and adults clothing on your website, what does that pop-up experience look like for that parent that's coming and landing on a kids product page versus maybe someone that's just coming and shopping for a pair of jeans, as an adult? what's the context switching there? Do you just have a generic pop-up, or do you have something that's much more personalized to that category? Maybe there's an incentive you can offer on that specific category that's different to another one that might be more compelling. So just trying to think a little bit more niche down. What kind of experience would people expect if they land on the homepage? How can I more quickly and efficiently get them to a product page that they need without having to click through multiple collections pages and sub pages before they get to where they're looking? And then if someone was to land on a product page first, they've come directly from an ad to a product page. What's the kind of next step in the journey where we want them to check out? How can we create an experience that encourages them to, quickly be able to do that and you feel incentivized and empowered to check out quickly?
Yeah, you just laid out a perfect journey, like post quiz. I wonder, it's July and people are setting up quizzes. Do you keep the quiz on in November? Do you make it a different quiz? Like, how do you present that when the goal is conversion at that point and maybe not so much data capture for some brands?
Yeah, for sure. But I still think, maybe you would want to simplify it, but November is a very interesting time, right? As a consumer, we all know you're just getting absolutely bombarded with offers and different messaging. And not many brands are really segmenting very much these days. I think it's very common for us to see a bit of segmentation from brands when it comes to maybe only communicating with people that are engaged, but they're not really even taking the time to do things like break down their customers by gender, So a lot of those experiences are still very impersonal. And having a brand that's trying to cut through that and better understand you to get you the right products you need is actually going to be a very unique experience for most people. So, leading into that holiday period, something that we talk to people about, tools like where Joe's from at GrowWave. Loyalty programs are a very interesting tool around the BFCM time because it gives people a reason to shop in the weeks and months leading up to BFCM because you can build incentives around what tier of loyalty you're in. And suddenly there might be an incentive for the people that are in the tier just above you that encourages you to buy something that week before Black Friday because you want to be in that tier to get that incentive when that sale drops. And that might be early access to the sale, something as simple as that. Or it might be, a type, if you're in this tier, you get this free gift, but if you're in that tier, you get that free gift. And people will do very interesting kind of mental gymnastics to justify why they should spend that extra money and be in that extra tier, right?
Yeah.
I know I do it, even though I work in this industry every day. So, I would say using things like that, I think, wish list building as well with GrowWave. If you sit down and think about it from a consumer perspective and a brand that you enjoy, being able to go onto a site, build a little bit of a catalog, and then know on sale day, you're going to be able to just go in and see that curated feed for yourself is a really great tool. But then, you have that on the flip side, you can do a lot of that with apps, in tools like Shopify. There are lots of personalization apps that can make sure that if they come back to the homepage, maybe they did a quiz earlier and they got recommended products and they looked at those products. When they come back to the site, those are the first products that they're going to see in that homepage product feed, right? Just trying to surface all that. Same thing in the emails. Klaviyo is able to do that with a lot of those quiz tools, like Justuno, right? Know what products were recommended and then be able to say in the Black Friday email, 20% off, starts now, and then picked just for you, have that product feed. And when you think about that mobile experience, you've taken a whole step out of the on-site experience that way, right? They're looking at the product feed in the email and they're able to then shop and go basically straight to checkout for those products without having to click through an extra set of pages.
That's so clutch, just to be able to pick up where you left off and kind of feel like, oh, I've been set up for success and they help me. Don't have to click through a bunch of other times just to get to this point. And mimicking that to when they get on site may feel a little redundant, but what you are doing is keeping a consistent journey. And with these offers and sales that you might have going on, it's a fine line between you could do this, or you could have this offer, and needing to get into hardcore girl math, to make it work and make it make sense for you. So it's what I like to point, it is nice to get someone to a way of thinking, how can they do all this and get all this? But we also want to make sure we're keeping that simple. I would love to hear
Yeah.
from you, Maggie, on this. How do you follow up there?
Yeah, so I think it's I agree with everything that's been said. Like definitely important what you're pushing out to customers on your site or landing pages, but I also think that it's important like where the message actually is located. So I would be remiss if I wasn't talking about channels a little bit because I'm coming from a cross-channel marketing company side of things. But I would say another really great way to increase engagement without coming across as annoying is by using non-intrusive messaging. That's kind of embedded within your app or site. So instead of using just pop-ups that like take up the whole screen or can be clicked out of or can be distracting, like if somebody's going to a site with a certain intent and then a pop-up comes up, they're probably just going to close out of it and not even pay attention to it. So I really recommend like try embedding recommendations or just other messages that you want to push out directly within the user interface, either on your site or within your app, so that customers can then choose what they want to interact with. And it's not necessarily like you forcing any content on them, which can oftentimes appear annoying. Like we've all been in that situation as consumers where we need to purchase something really quickly. So we just go to the website and a message pops up and we just immediately click out of it. Something that we've been working on at Iterable and we released it earlier this year is embedded messaging, which is kind of what I talked about just now. Like really pushing out messages to the consumer that are important and help reiterate all those pop-up messages and emails and SMS that you're sending, but that are like reiterating it in almost a subtle way and truly a non-annoying way where what you're trying to push out is just naturally occurring within their user experience so that when they open up their app, for example, maybe to go make that quick purchase that they need to make, they can still see the message that you're wanting to show them, but it's just, it's a tile below where they click to purchase or something along those lines. But really just making the experience feel more native to them, I think can be really important when you're trying to not come across as annoying, which I think, again, we've just all experienced in today's day and age with all the ads and messages that were pushed out.
Yeah, for sure. And the annoyance, don't forget that annoyance can just bleed into your site based off of where else they've been shopping. And it's not even like the same industry. Like I could be shopping at Costco and I had a terrible experience on their app. And I go to another app and I'm just like carrying that with me. Like, okay, what am I going to deal with here? So that's a good point. Like when they are landing on mobile and when you're thinking about like that annoying experience, an embedded message, it doesn't always have to be like text, which message may imply. It can also be like your trust icons, your value add messaging. Like if you won this award, like how soon are you showcasing that? I'll throw it in chat, but Solly Baby does a great job of throwing that kind of value add into their product page, homepage, and subdomains that they have. I just threw it in chat there for everyone. Thank you, Maggie. That was great. Let's throw it over to Joe. What do you got to say on this one?
I was going to say, I feel like everyone just made such valuable points here. I think to kind of like double down on people's points, I think one, there's so many factors that could be involved with a low engagement rate. I think we've made that very clear with what everyone's kind of said. So I think one, if you're able to, having really strong agency partners, like, people like Anzen involved with that process is really going to help you because they can really peel back the kind of layers to this and identify what those points could be. I think for value add to the audience today, making sure that you're measuring everything correctly is going to be really important. So using tools like Lucky Orange to identify those things if you don't have an agency that's essentially doing that for you. Or if you're working in conjunction with an agency, you should be looking at those figures and numbers because I think there are so many factors that can go into reasons for having a low engagement rate. And I think, particularly to Jason's point, quizzes are such a nice, non-invasive, personalized, good customer experience. Back to Jason's point around people actually now, we're seeing a resurgence in retail. I think it really does create a much more personalized, engaging experience, which is going to keep people more engaged on page. And I think, SJ, one of the really cool points that you made, and Maggie, I think you mentioned it too, around, trust signals and those sorts of things being really important. I think being able to have social proof, and I'd be remiss to not, kind of talk about that from being from a reviews and loyalty and wish list management platform, but having, you know, UGC in there can be a really good kind of way, and it can be a visual way of adding trust and having a trust signal. I mean, people say a picture says 1,000 words. It certainly does, and video says even more. So having UGC that's relevant to a product and a page that someone's landed on can really help to increase that engagement rate, and in a way kind of upsell and engage someone without being too intrusive.
Yeah. I love that. I'm all for UGC reviews higher up on a page, especially on mobile. And it doesn't have to be like you're showing them everything at once. To Maggie's point, it could be just the smallest little CTA embedded if you don't want to get into all this dev work, right? And then that opens up your full delivery of like the how-to, the video, the founder giving a sweet message.
Absolutely.
Yeah, a lot
Absolutely.
of that's like just that telling click for you for engagement. Thank you, Joe. That was lovely. Let's throw it over to
Thank you.
Tina to wrap us up on this one. This one's taken a good bit of our time, but I love where we've gone to.
Yeah, no, everyone said some really, really great ideas around, like, there's just so many reasons why your engagement could be down on mobile, and it's going to be hard to pinpoint unless you know, start testing and trying to improve things and just seeing what happens. So I'm going to take a bit of a different direction here, and I just think like this is why it's important to diversify your digital footprint in your sales channels. So I will lean into like the mobile app space a little bit. And I know there was a comment about this anyway. But yeah, I think like you want to kind of think beyond just your desktop fitting on a mobile screen, which is what I think a lot of people like take the approach of doing when they're thinking about like mobile apps and also just like their mobile experience in general. And your engagement could be down on mobile because maybe there's a lot of like accessibility issues with your mobile site that, you know, it's okay on desktop, but then once you get to mobile, it's not working. And mobile apps can just like provide that much more accessible experience and much more personalized experience as well these days. There's a lot of great apps like TapCart, Reactive, and they're making like the barrier to entry easier than ever before. I think like mobile apps, once upon a time, it was really difficult. It was a lot of custom work. Like you needed developers in house to be able to do that. These days, like it really is easier than ever to get started. And even if you're not ready to dive into like having your own mobile app, Shopify has been really investing a lot in their shop channel. And like I said, barrier to entry, super easy. There are like 125 million customers already using Shopify's shop channel, which is like their own mobile app where it's kind of like a catalog of all these different stores on Shopify that customers can go through and discover new brands and be able to purchase things easily. So I think like that could be a really great way to kind of getting started to a mobile experience. And they've been integrating a lot of their apps from their storefront over to their shop channel as well. So Simple Bundles is on Shop. We just announced that a few weeks ago. So you can now build bundles on Shop and, you know, upsell, increase AOV there. So I would just say like maybe you have to understand like some customers prefer that mobile app experience because it can feel more personalized to them. It's easier for them. They're used to apps versus having to like go on mobile and type in a store URL on their mobile screen. So consider investing in a channel like that, whether it's starting out easy with Shop or, you know, building your own like full custom experience. And then the other thing I'll say is bridge the gap between all of your sales channels and think of ways that you can upsell. So I think a lot of things that I see too is people are like, we have our mobile app, we have our mobile site, we have our like social media sites, we have our Shopify desktop site, and like they treat them all very individually. And I think there's a lot more opportunity to be like bridging the gaps between all of these sales channels together. And the example I'll give is talking about Halara earlier when we were talking about things that we recently purchased, SJ. So I was like browsing their desktop store and they hit me with a product coupon bundle, which was something I hadn't seen before, where they said, if you download our mobile app, we're going to give you a coupon bundle that's worth $500 of basically like coupons to use on products. I immediately downloaded the app and I used that coupon within like 10 minutes and purchased like $200 worth of clothes, I think. So I just thought that was like a really, really strategic way to say like, okay, we're capturing this person from the desktop experience. We're going to actually bring them over to our mobile experience with a higher intent to purchase. And I just think like that's a really, really great way to start thinking about ways to bridge these channels. And then that can also help increase the engagement you're seeing on your mobile because you're bringing that customer over with like the intent to buy something right away.
That's awesome. So were you already a customer before they gave you that offer, or was that a new visitor offer?
So I had purchased like 4 years ago,
Oh,
and
wow.
then
Okay.
I was getting all of their TikTok ads, and then I went to the desktop store after seeing all the TikTok ads, and then I saw that coupon bundle and I downloaded the mobile app and purchased. So another great example of bridging all your channels. You know, I was a desktop purchaser, then I was a TikTok ads person over to Google search and then to their mobile app. So all of these things really need to be as connected as possible.
Oh yeah, that's beautiful. I think typically we hear like about the app being maybe more for like the higher VIPers, maybe more of that community or loyalty group, which is great. But from what you said, like my takeaway is if you're gonna be so upfront of like get into our app already, like hopefully that app is set up for success, maybe has something a little bit different or extra to offer to make them feel a little bit more special, or just like you had the best offer and a solid experience, and that did it for you.
Yeah, and I still have the app downloaded, by the way, and it's been like six
There you
months
go.
since I made that purchase.
Nice. There you go. I wonder, Tina, how many apps from brands do you have downloaded if you want to share?
Yeah. Okay, so there's a clothing store I buy like 99% of my clothing from. So I've been like a loyal mobile app user of theirs for
Nice.
years and years, like probably 12, 10 years I've had their
Oh
mobile
my
app.
gosh.
I only purchase from their mobile app because it's just so easy. And I have like a whole VIP profile on there where I can like keep track of my rewards and my purchases and my receipts and everything. And then this Halara company as well. And then I believe I have two more.
Okay,
So
nice.
yeah, about four. And like the ones that I'm really active on, they send me push notifications. And there's been a lot of research lately from Tapcart, especially on like how people prefer actually getting push notifications over like email and SMS right now because those channels are starting to feel like there's a lot going on in them. People are constantly getting emails. SMS is getting a bit more busier too. And so I actually like the push notifications as well. So I think it's like the mobile app just gives you also like an additional way to start communicating with those customers on with messaging that feels a little less noisy than the other channels that they're used to right now.
Yeah, it's like so dismissible. It's perfect. It's like you don't really have to invest a lot in push notifications, like as a user, yeah, as a customer. That's funny. I feel like 5 years ago, push notifications was also a big thing. And then it kind of went away a bit as like SMS took control here and there. But yeah, now we're back. I am all about push notifications as well. Excellent. So we are a little more than halfway through. Let's see how we can get through theme 2 here and then our third theme to all the panelists. So we'll start this one off with Jason, and I'll do a little read through here. So bounce rates are a telling metric when it comes to the post-click experience. So what are 3 to 4 steps that brands should take to reduce friction and increase relevancy once a visitor lands on site?
Yeah, so I think the number one thing is making sure that the experience is really consistent is like easily the number one thing to consider. So making sure like whatever call to action they clicked to land on the website aligns with what they're supposed to do next on the website. So, if you've got ads set up and the call to action is, shop this amazing collection, and then you send them to the homepage. Or there's something about how you've got this perfect product for a certain category, and then you send them to a homepage instead of the collection page. You've immediately kind of snapped that flow, right? They've got something to do now to be able to get to the content that you promised them. So no, like some things like that sound simple, but it can be really easy when you're setting up, a couple of ad campaigns or something like that to just forget about it, or you just, paste in the website URL and away you go. But really take that time to think about, if I'm looking at this ad and it's a collection-based ad, am I sending them to the right collection? Can I go onto that collection page and can I pre-check some filters if I know this ad is for women, to make sure that only the women's products in that collection are going to be displayed? And can I get a URL that's going to apply those filters so that they don't see any of the men's products or kids products or anything like that, and it's just personalized to them? So making sure that that experience is really nice and consistent. And even that step before, where we we're just talking there about like that segmentation, it is a bit more work, but maybe it's only 30 minutes more work, right? To just take the time to set up a version of the ad that's gendered. It's a really interesting one in email and SMS where we've worked with a few brands where we've just put gender into their initial pop-up and then do some segmentation just in the welcome series where if you choose a gender, you get a gendered version of the email where the categories are pre-filtered for that gender and maybe the product feed is pre-filtered for that gender. And then we'll normally have kind of a generic fallback. And I was talking to a brand just the other day. We were looking at the stats in the welcome series and the gendered version of the email. The open rates were all kind of fairly similar, but the click rates in the gendered version were 3 times higher than the click rates in the non-gendered version. And the conversion rate was more than double in the gendered version. So like you think about like what did it take to just create the original version of the email and then just like make a copy, put a female hero image in there and make a female feed and then make a copy of that and switch it out to male. Maybe it's an hour's worth of work, but like what is double or more the conversion rate worth to you? Is it worth an hour's worth of work? The answer is almost certainly going to be yes from a return on investment perspective. And when you're thinking about that mobile experience, right, like having all of those steps, as many of those steps as you can cut out, the better it is. If anyone does have an app today as well, making use of deep links, that's something that you can do so that if someone clicks, they don't just land on your website, but the app launches on their mobile and they can go into a certain space on the mobile. It's really, really helpful, especially if you have some sort of in-app incentives or things like that that are really specific, making sure that you're not just sending them to the website and then they have to close the website and open your app because they're looking at something. You can look up, like if you're using, I know most people are using Klaviyo, they've got like really simple help guides on how you can put a deep link into your email. And then obviously when you're designing your email, when you're designing the mobile version, just create a mobile version of that content block, put a deep link in the mobile version versus your desktop, just, link it to the homepage or, wherever in the website it's supposed to go. So those two things I would say are really important. And the last thing, I've kind of touched on it a couple of times, but bringing those product feeds into your email can actually really help create a shoppable experience in that context that then cuts out a certain page that they need to then use when they get to the website. So doing all of those things. And then the last thing I would say is product reviews that are like visually easy to see on the homepage are really important. It's just like there's a million studies out there, being able to see the stars, making sure that you can click on them, making sure that'll take you down to a section where the reviews are, making sure that section isn't like collapsed and hidden and tucked away, but it's opened up. It's a valuable part of the product page. It should be a really visual experience. Making sure that that's easy to engage with so that people can build trust quickly and then obviously convert from there.
Heck yeah. I loved your point about like the quizzing and then how that leads into the segmentation of email. That just sounds like proactive filtering, right? Instead of me going through like, oh, what filter options do you have? You're instead now using the quiz, asking a question, and then it's real-time messaging that you can serve up based on that on the website. And then to your point, every other channel that you have, just mimicking that, just really driving it home and just really becoming your own little influencer here and there with the various
But I'm sure we've all done it as consumers, right? Like we're sitting on the couch, we're watching TV, you're scrolling on your phone at the same time. You click on something and then you just like land on a homepage of a website and you're like, well, whatever. And you just close the app, right? And you go back to whatever you're doing on social because you just can't be bothered to walk through those extra steps. Now, I think sometimes when we're on the other side as the merchant, we want to believe that people are going to love my brand and they're going to be really excited to investigate and go through it. But if you put your customer hat on, like even if you see something that's cool, if you land on the side and you have to go looking for that product in the photo on the ad that you saw that was cool, like you're just not going to do it. You're going to be like, no, whatever. And you're just going to go back. Yeah. So trying to smooth that experience out as much as possible is really important.
Yeah, absolutely. And to like your point of just kind of closing out of things quickly or like kind of things being irrelevant, I will especially close out of something if it's just like so bright on my screen and I'm visiting a page at like 10 at night. So just a
Yeah.
quick little note for like friction reducing, like you can totally have a different version of your lead capture for people visiting at nighttime versus during the day. Like at night, maybe
Yeah.
just make a dark mode, consider something that isn't going just to be blinding them once they arrive on your page.
Yeah.
My 2 cents of personal.
Actually, I did have that one other note there that you just reminded me
Yeah.
I missed was the something that's really important. I mean, it's important everywhere, but on mobile, it's even more important. Like, be regularly testing your mobile site from these things, and make sure that if you have a couple of different pop-ups or offers that you run, that they don't both come up at the same time. It's an annoying experience on desktop, but on mobile, it's just even worse. I actually went onto that Halara website when you mentioned it before, and the desktop version of the Australian site, immediately you get two pop-ups that come up. There's like a spin wheel that comes out, and then another one that layers over the top. So it's just, like it's so easy, right? When if you're setting these things up and maybe you don't test it as a consumer yourself, then you're often on your own site so often. It can be rare to replicate that new visitor site experience when you go to the website. And when you've got two or three things going, you can just miss stuff. Like, just slips through the cracks. So doing that regular testing yourself is really important.
Oh yeah, or regular auditing. Now's a great time to get an audit in, which we'll share more on that later. Thank you, Jason. Let's take it over to Maggie on the iterable side. What are you thinking here for steps?
Yeah, so I agree with Jason. I was actually going to start off with testing, so that was a great way for him to close out his thoughts. Like, such a key step just to reduce friction and increase relevance for your site visitors by actually testing out everything as you're the consumer. Just even like testing your page loading speeds on the devices that you're going to be pushing this out on, just to make sure that people are actually going to make it to your site in the first place. Like, that's so crucial. And making sure that the image or whatever you've included on the page actually looks like it's supposed to, or doesn't take a year to actually appear on the page. Like, you want to even make sure that people make it to the page before even like thinking about what they're going to action on. So I think that's like a really important step. And then just testing everything that's on the page in general, of course, like the copy and everything else that you're going to include on there. But yeah, definitely just make sure that people are even making it to your site or the landing page, wherever you're trying to take them, I think is really key. And then this is also kind of just echoing what Jason said too, but targeting and relevance, like segmentation is super important. Nobody likes going to a web page or linking out to something that doesn't match what they thought that they were going to. And then I also think consistently changing up the messaging that's, on your landing page or on your site, depending on the segmentation, is really important too, because you might have like a lifelong customer that is constantly linking out to your site, and you don't want it to just be like the same copy over and over every time that they're going to your site. So keep it interesting for them. Like, don't just focus on like your prospects or the people who haven't bought from you before. Focus on like your current customers too, and include them in those segments also, because there might be really like, or they might want you to switch up the copy and like keep it interesting for them too. So I would say just that's really important also. And then just having really clear and like easy to find CTAs. I think that's really important for everybody too, because of course, like if you go to a landing page or a site and again, it's not what you intended to link out to or go to, can be kind of a frustrating experience as a consumer. So making sure that that's like really easy to find and your site's easy to navigate, I think is really important as well.
Great points. And that's all, like, we have limited time to capture their attention. So if you're just showing them the same thing they saw, 2 sessions ago when they didn't share any info, maybe that's just going to feel a little bit like a slap in the face. Like, hey, I gave you my stuff. Like, what are you doing with it? Thank you, Maggie.
Yeah.
Great points there. Let's take it over to Joe from GrowWave. What are you thinking on this one? Oopsie.
Yeah, definitely. So once again, some amazing points, and it's awesome to hear that everyone on this panel is like literally in the same frame of thinking. But I think the incorrect links thing was really funny because, and then SJ, you also mentioned the browsing a site late at night in bed and it's like super bright.
Yeah.
And there's a really large footwear retailer that's really bad at both of those things. And it actually caused me to not purchase on mobile because of that. It was like, it's super bright and overbearing. And all I was thinking is like, this is a multi-billion-dollar company. Surely you have designers that could create like a night mode for if I'm browsing in certain regions. Surely you could personalize for that. And then I think the other thing was it was like I was literally displayed an ad through, I believe it was through Instagram, and then like landed on the category page as opposed to the product page. So it was like two strikes, I'm out. I would have bounced off one anyway.
Yeah.
But I unfortunately, like I think a lot of those larger brands, to the point that was made earlier, sit there and think, oh, I have an amazing enough brand. I don't need to worry about those little things. But it's like I actually find smaller growing up and coming brands typically tend to, you know, dot those I's and cross those T's more efficiently on those things. So that's two big things. And I think to the point of social proof, and reviews and all of those sorts of things, displaying relevant UGC that's actually shoppable can be a really, really good way of kind of lowering bounce rates and keeping people involved. And also it comes back to kind of what we were talking about in the first theme around that personalization through quizzing and those sorts of things, and then properly using that data. And of course, I am a massive, massive proponent of the sort of, you know, phraseology and terminology around, like, you know, everyone has an opinion, but data actually is fact. So I think, you know, using data and continuing to use things and tools like Lucky Orange to be able to like capture that data and make intelligent decisions is really important.
Oh yeah, being the most informed right now is key. And I would say like what you're finding now in your visitors and behavior, like you can definitely carry that into the holiday season. And what you're doing in the holiday is like doing those audits, continuing to do like any last minute checks and making sure everything's working as intended. Thank you for that, Jim.
Definitely.
Let's take it over to Tina. What are you thinking on this one?
Yeah, again, it's great points from everyone. So it's hard to recap all the awesome stuff that's already been said. I think on my end, when it comes to like friction experiences on mobile, like I would argue that a clean navigation is probably like even more important on your mobile experience than it is on desktop. And that's just because like there's less real estate on mobile, like the screen size is smaller, the fold is often smaller. So I think like people don't want to endlessly be scrolling and clicking to find the items that they need. So I think like even beyond just like basic category pages, you should also be categorizing by like buyer profile. So if you're like a hair care brand, create like the profiles for people with like curly hair, for straight hair, for blonde hair, for, you know, like oil control, frizz control, all of those different things. And then also by like product bundle solutions, I think having like a specific category page for your product bundles is like a super underrated thing to do. And it's just because it's so easy for folks to be able to build like a full routine or a full outfit without having to like navigate through all these different category pages to do that. So like thinking back to the hair care products, you know, people often aren't just buying shampoo, they're buying shampoo and conditioner. Some folks are buying shampoo, conditioner, and an oil and a hair mask. Like, you know, there's the 2-step folks, there's the 10-step folks when it comes to skincare and hair care. So as a consumer, like I would love to have just like a category page that says like, here's a full product bundle for oily hair. It's got my hair mask, it's got my shampoo, it's got my conditioner. It's all there. It's there at a discounted rate for me. And I think like it's just super underrated to have those experiences easily available in your navigation for people to like find exactly what it is that they're looking for. The other one that I really like seeing on mobile is Shop the Look. So I mentioned the Dynamite brand that I love shopping from on their mobile app and on their non-mobile app, like just like their mobile page as well. If I like click into a sweater and I see the models wearing like this really awesome outfit, they have like perfect jeans paired with it, accessories that I love. Lower down on that product page, it'll say shop the look and it'll just like feature everything that the model's wearing. So I can easily like one click add all of those items to my cart as well and like kind of get that look that the model has on too. So I think like, yeah, just thinking how can you make it as easy and seamless as possible for people to be able to find those items on your mobile experience is going to help like reduce that friction and they're going to be less likely to bounce off of your mobile site. In addition to that, like some accessible things is obviously like keeping your text short. I like to think like writing like a LinkedIn post where your paragraphs are very short, your sentences aren't too long, you're not trying to get too complicated or witty, you're providing the information that they need. Because on your mobile screen, long text looks just like a giant block. It's hard to read. You also want to be careful about your image sizes, especially for mobile, because it can really slow down your website experience. So if it's taking forever for your mobile site to load, I'm losing trust as a consumer. So just make sure you're always reducing your image sizes. And then things like interactive elements and buttons, there's some rules. I would definitely look up like the ADA rules, the American Disabilities Act rules for websites, because they have really strong guidelines around mobile experiences, like for how big your button sizes need to be and all the interactive elements and how spaced out they need to be on mobile. That stuff is really important to keep in mind too. Even like allowing for text rotation on your mobile site is an accessibility thing that you need to keep in mind, and your site should still work if someone wants to like rotate their screen. So I would suggest looking at those things too, because not only are they going to help you have a really clean experience, but you're also going to have a site that's accessible for everyone to be able to use.
Heck yes, taking it down to just straight, how can people get along on your website at like the basic uses? Thank you for that, Tina. I really liked how you're getting at bundles and how it's easy to like present that. And if you do the work already with all that bundle stuff, you're like one step away from gift guides and being able to like pivot that into holiday. So just an FYI if you get started on that. I think what you touched on is a super good segue into Sean on Lucky Orange side. What are you thinking here?
Yeah, it probably bears repeating everything everybody said about layout, technical usability, alignment with ads and landing pages and stuff. I think I would just add on top one way of thinking about how to get at what messaging, what order of information, and what page layouts might resonate better with people. Because of course, if we're saying we need to do that, how do we get at that? And the kind of way I like to think about this is that people don't buy from you for, I won't say a million, but dozens of reasons. Their phone battery died. Their boss walked up and they had to get off of your site. Their kid started screaming and whatever. Like, they're not buying from you for a whole host of reasons. So it's okay if we're trying to figure out what's resonating to just talk to the people that ended up purchasing. They purchased from you for a very small list of reasons. You aligned with something that when they came to your site, they were motivated about what your product and your brand could do for them. They were nervous about something about your brand, but you could overcome it with messaging, whatever it might be. So I think just to kind of add on, I think it's okay if we're going to say, let's go to battle with bounce rate, sure, attack the technical stuff and the layout stuff, but also if we're going to talk to customers and survey them, if we have enough people that are buying, so this isn't for the people that are saying I have traffic and no conversions, but if you do have the people that are buying to tap into for surveys, I think it's more than acceptable to say, let's focus on those people and focus on what's driving the people and converting them. They're our best resource because they converted for a very small list of reasons. And maybe the people that bounced would also convert for that reason. They just didn't happen to convert on that individual visit. So that's really the only thing I would add on top of that if we're going to go, beyond all the other wonderful stuff that everybody said. And that same piece of advice could probably apply to really going after any sort of negative trend that you see on your site, but specifically with bounce rate and relevancy and these things where we're trying to capture attention with messaging and layout and pictures and images and whatever. If somebody says, yeah, I really loved that you showed the product on somebody's foot or whatever. Okay, well, great. Like maybe we lean into that and that's the lead image or whatever it might be. And focusing on the buyers and not worrying as much about the people that bounced.
Great example of kind of where to go on that focus, like just even down to the product image and what you're displaying first up can make an impact. I love that, team. I know technically we have 2 minutes. How are we feeling about wrapping up with our third theme? Quick 15, seeing if we get through it. Yeah, cool. If people have got to hop, no worries. This is still recorded, but we're going to get into our third theme to give you some value here when it comes to ROAS. So adjusting campaigns for mobile traffic and mobile first browsing is easier said than done. So what strategies do you see brands implementing to improve their mobile ROAS? And we'll start off with Iterable. Maggie, you want to take it away?
Yeah, I'll kick it off. So I think one great way to improve mobile ROAS is to incorporate one-on-one mobile first channels into your campaign. So we talked about this earlier, but think like mobile push, SMS, those kinds of things. And it's just a great way to use like very personalized and intimate channels to ensure the majority of your customers are actually going to see and read your messages. We also talked about this earlier, how SMS is definitely getting, like, the market's getting a little bit more saturated, but it is still a really important channel that, you know, you probably are missing out on if you're not using, because it is so intimate. So even though we're seeing other channels come up in terms of importance right now, it's definitely still going to be relevant, you know, in the years to come. We all have our phones, like mine's right by me right now. So definitely important to still, you know, use that in your strategy, and, you know, use those mobile first channels within your campaigns to then again link out to, you know, your landing pages, your website, your app, link people to where you want to go. But I think, like, really building your strategy around those mobile first channels really gets you in that mindset of, like, the mobile first consumer. So I would say just making sure that you're incorporating those, not just, you know, taking your campaigns that you initially built and converting them to mobile, but also starting again, like, with those mobile first channels and kind of building a strategy around that is, like, a really great place to start when you are working on mobile first campaigns specifically.
Absolutely. Yeah. And you touch on SMS. I've been loving that more brands have gotten a little more brave at, like, asking you a question in text, and then you're just, like, replying with your feedback, whether it's, like, about your experience or, like, hey, what color would you like best for this product? Like, even that is taking it to the next level of, like, okay, it's not always going to be salesy, you know, like, I'm part of this community now with this brand. So taking it that way, like, you're kind of just building a nice hot engaged list for the holiday too, knowing that someone's given you that kind of feedback with that mobile first campaign. Great examples, Maggie. Thank you so much. Let's take it over to Joe. What are you thinking on this one?
Yeah, so I guess, like, key takeaway for this, and it's not necessarily even just mobile kind of specific, but a really, really, really quick win, and personalizing obviously how you're displaying this based upon whether someone's using mobile or desktop. But figures directly from Shopify are that adding reviews to a product page can increase conversion anywhere from 3 to 37%. So I really think making that a really core part of how that's displayed on mobile, and making sure that it's not, you know, we've kind of touched on this, too big, or it's not irrelevant or anything like that, but having really, really relevant, clean, clear, concise reviews. I think, Jason, you mentioned even just that psychological effect of seeing 5-star ratings and just seeing stars is going to be super important. And I think that the other, I guess, kind of thing that's really important to maximize this, and we've touched on this, is actually making sure that it links properly. I think, like, so many people with ad campaigns, I can't stress this enough. I can't even imagine how much is wasted per day on, you know, all of the available ad channels just by not checking a link. Like, just check a link. If you're an ecom manager, get your team to check their links. Agency managers, check your links. Like, it's just so important, and it's such an easy, simple step. And if someone has that negative experience, like we all discussed, people are bouncing off that page, and they're probably never going to shop there again. You want to be encouraging customers to be loyal customers by providing an amazing experience, getting them into a loyalty program, making them feel special, as opposed to giving them a terrible experience where they're never going to come back again.
Absolutely. Joe, we have a question in chat for us that I think would be good for you to answer here, but they're asking, should the review come after checkout, after shipping, or after delivering? And I have my own thoughts, like, you know, on-site reviews, like, you know, that UX versus product reviews. But what are you thinking?
Definitely. I think there's multiple ways to do it, right? So, like, for example, we have an integration with Gorgeous, so that, you know, Shopify merchants who use Gorgeous and GrowWave can actually, like, while they're helping a customer with something, ask for a review during that process after the customer service agent has just given someone a great experience. You know, you can be really timely about it with certain things, like, you know, waiting after a certain amount of time. So, say, for example, I think someone mentioned they purchased something for their wedding recently. Well, typically people do that, you know, anywhere from 3 to 6 months or even 12 months out from a wedding. So you may not necessarily get a review if you send it straight after the product is shipped. So I think really understanding your audience, and a similar theme, I guess, we've all kind of touched on here, is like test, measure, test. see what works best for your brand. And based upon what we've also discussed, segmentation, because there are certain demographics and audiences that are more likely to leave a review than others. The more you personalize that review request, the more likely you are to get that review. So I guess the best way is to try a multitude of things, see what works in the best way possible. But also, to my point on our first theme, I think make sure you have the right experts involved, and organizations like ANZN, and then make sure you have the right tools involved to measure all of that data.
Fabulous. Thank you, Joe, for answering that one. And yep, we got Jason in there giving some more insight. Appreciate it, you too. Let's take it over to Tina. What are you thinking on this one?
Yeah, so I think like same kind of thing here. This is probably advice for just like in general, versus just mobile. But I was actually reading a report earlier this week that was saying like median revenue for brands is up 10% year over year. So I think like sentiments, like buyer sentiments, obviously like ad spend and everything has just been like really, really difficult the last few years. Obviously 10% year over year is a small lift, but it is a lift in the right direction. But you still do need to be careful with spend. I was talking to one of the founders that I work with earlier this week as well around this 10% lift, and I really like how he worded it. He was like, spend $1 today for $1.50 tomorrow. So just kind of keeping that mindset of like, what are the quick win things that are going to work that you can invest in right now that aren't going to be like too costly to invest in, because at the moment, like, while things are still going up, you still do need to like stay the course and be consistent. So, just have healthy spending habits right now. And this is why like organic marketing efforts are still and always will be more important than ever. Obviously, I'm very biased about content marketing, but I do think like it's something that's just going to continue being really important, especially thinking about, how you can lower that return on ad spend. And I also think too, like, a lot of focus goes on like the acquisition side, and then we get to like that point of purchase and we kind of forget there's like this whole journey after the point of purchase too. So I think we do have to remember that like the point, like I like to say like the point of purchase is like the start of a new customer relationship, not the end. So not just thinking about how can we lower like the cost for acquisition, but if we're already investing this money into acquiring customers, what are the things that we should be doing after the point of purchase then to like keep them around long term? And this is why I just really strongly believe in things like post-purchase surveys where, you're kind of maybe collecting feedback about like the buyer's experience, asking them what almost stopped you from purchasing today, or even redirecting them to like your referral program, your loyalty program, to download your mobile app after that so that you have a new way to keep like engaging with them and giving them value. So those would just be, things I recommend. Another thing that I'm seeing a lot of right now that seems to be doing really well is direct mail. I'm a big Postpilot fan, and they've been releasing a lot of interesting data around like how every generation actually really likes receiving direct mail, not just boomers, which I think like is kind of the mindset everyone thinks is like just baby boomers are the only ones that want direct mail, but it's actually showing that Generation Z, Y, millennials, all of them, they actually do really like receiving direct mail too. And traffic and conversions from those direct mail campaigns are just doing very, very well. So that might be something to consider if you feel like you need to try something new.
Absolutely. I think the direct mail component, like it had, it's years to take a little bit of a break. And now it is like, oh, this is new. Like, oh, they're contacting me this way. Like it is a way to stand out. And yeah, odds are your competitor isn't doing that. Especially with your holiday time. Like now you can kind of test maybe what works well in that direct mail and then just hit it hard for holiday time with whatever the strategy is that wins there.
Yeah, and I think like Maggie made a really good point too about SMS. Like it is true. It's like, maybe things like email are getting saturated. Maybe more brands are sending SMS more than they used to, but that doesn't mean that these channels don't still matter and aren't important anymore. So kind of going back to like what I said at the beginning about like diversifying your channels and making sure they're all connected in the right ways, I think is the right way to approach it. Like all of these things are still very relevant and will continue to be relevant. So it's not like, hey, like a lot of people are sending SMS right now, I'm going to stop sending SMS. It's like, no, continue sending SMS. How can you do it better? But then what are maybe additional things that you could be doing that are also going to capture people's attention, and you can keep nurturing them through your SMS as well.
Well said. Thank you for that. Let's take it over to Sean from Lucky Orange. What are your thoughts on this one?
Yeah, one thing on SMS, I was talking to Greg from OmniSend last week, and I haven't actually seen this advice play out, and I haven't actually used it. So try it, take it with a grain of salt. But his recommendation for collecting SMS, collecting phone numbers, I guess, on your form where you're doing this is to ask for and require email entry, and then also on the same form ask for but not require the phone number. So his theory there was that the SMS might be more intrusive. It's also potentially easier to opt out of than an email. But if we can collect both of those, then if somebody opts out of email, we still have them in SMS and we can segment based on all that stuff. So just an idea to play with maybe on your site if you're trying to kick up a more omni-channel approach, especially heading into the back half of the year here, and you want to try SMS, you want to try email with email collection for offers or loyalty or whatever it might be. Maybe play with that, requiring an email, and in the same form also having a field for a phone number, but not requiring that. The really only thing I would add to the conversation here would be if we're trying to monitor traffic from a mobile first campaign on the site using something like Lucky Orange, not a sales pitch. There's other tools like it out there, but just make sure that you're tagging those campaigns properly. We can easily filter visitors and session recordings and things for, hey, they're on mobile, but it makes our life a lot easier if you're filtering by something like a UTM parameter. You can say, hey, these people came directly from this specific campaign. And it makes, if you're doing the analysis, your agency's doing the analysis, whoever's doing the analysis, it makes it 10 times easier, 100 times easier to say, yeah, these people came from this campaign, they came from this geographic location, whatever it might be, if we tag all the traffic. So really that's all I'd say is if you're monitoring and you're looking to make adjustments to campaigns and creative and whatever it might be, just make sure you're tagging things properly to make that analysis a lot easier.
Smart, all about making sure you have the data and like are able to view it in a way that you can dissect that. Thank you, sir. And Jason, can you wrap us up on this theme, please?
Yeah, for sure. I'll start off maybe a little bit with some of the SMS stuff and what Sean was saying there. That those notes about the forms are really important. So we actually see a significantly higher conversion rate for people adding mobile when you use a two-step form. And SJ, you just shared the guide on how to create that, but there's a couple of reasons for why that is. First of all, forms that don't have mobile in it in terms of that first card have a higher conversion rate for getting people to opt in for email. So people, when they see like just first name and email without the phone, it's a little bit less intimidating. There's a certain subset of people that just don't want to give you a mobile number, and they're not going to take the time to look at it and see, well, is email required but mobile not, or whatnot. So not having mobile on that first page, but then if they put their name and email in and they go to a second page, humans are creatures of like, once we start something, we like to finish it, like there's people are going to get that, see the second page, and many people are just going to put their mobile number in because they're like, well, I'm just going through a process now.
Yeah.
What we find really effective with SMF as well is thinking about the context of the channel and why would someone want to opt in for it. So something that we encourage merchants to do when they're looking at like a two-step model like that is, rather than offering an extra discount to get someone's mobile number, offer something like early access to a new collection launch or a sale or something like that, because SMS inherently has like a high urgency around it as a channel, right? It's very interruptive to someone's day. So they need a really compelling reason to give you their mobile number and be okay with essentially giving you permission to interrupt their day. So something like early access or some sort of exclusive timed thing around SMS, it's a very logical sell for someone to be like, actually, yeah, well, if I do get in 2 hours or 1 day early access to Black Friday, Cyber Monday, that's actually pretty high value for me. I'm more than happy for you to interrupt my morning coffee or whatever it is, if that's what I'm going to get out of it. And that's great because you don't have to give away extra discounts. You're not cutting your margins on an order, but you're getting access to the channel and you're doing it in a really logical way. But then you have to follow through on that promise, obviously, making sure that the experience that you're sending via SMS really aligns. If you do want to do an incentive, something easy is just birthday. We'll send you something on your birthday. Again, it's logical for people. They'll be thinking like, this will get cut through. I'll want a text on my birthday saying happy birthday. That sounds great. Get a little discount on my birthday as well. So there's just some ideas using that two-step functionality. It works well on mobile as well. With tools like Justuno, the forms are kind of optimized so that when someone's on their phone and they click in the field, on an iPhone, it'll give you that option to pre-fill your name and email. You can just click a button rather than typing out. Mobile is the same thing. So it's a really effective strategy for building that database. And then in terms of kind of adjusting campaigns, I think like we've talked about a lot of those ideas around segmentation and how to like remove steps from the buying journey, but it's really like it is something that you can apply across a lot of different things. Early on, people were talking about push notifications. They're a really, really great tool. There are a lot of platforms that allow you to do it. I mean, TapCart has come up a couple of times. They have a push notification feature, obviously, in their product for helping you with your app, but Klaviyo has a great integration with TapCart, and we've built really complex flows for merchants where if someone is shopping in the app and we don't have push notification permission, but we do have email, well, then like how are we using email to try and get them back into the app? Or if they have SMS but not push, how are we using SMS to get them back? But push is like, Apple is really improving the push notification experience. You can get images in there now. It can be like a very visual and engaging channel. So a really great way to get people straight back into the cart, launch into the app. The load time is really fast. Exploring that if you're looking at an app is really powerful. And then, in terms of if you're like running ads and things like that, something that not a lot of people are doing, but is a basic feature in Klaviyo is those segments that you have created in Klaviyo. So think about, if you want to create a segment, a gendered segment, for example, or, a segment of people that have abandoned a cart recently or something like that. Klaviyo has an integration with Meta, Google, and TikTok to allow you to sync those audiences to those channels and then run ads to those audiences specifically. So like Sean was saying earlier about thinking, using those people who purchase, knowing that they're like a very relevant audience for you. Well, like how are you using those VIPs to sync that out to Facebook and use that to build your lookalike audience? Or are you grabbing people that used to be in that, maybe they had purchased 2 or 3 times, but they haven't purchased in 6 months? Why don't we push that out if they're not engaging with emails as much and try and win them back on ads? Give you that like omni-channel strategy that's kind of real, and you're actually using the data that you have to power it.
Great description of omni-channel and just like questioning, if we have this, kind of what does that mean for the experience? So data to experience to action. Thank you, Jason, for wrapping us up on that one. Let me take us to our final slide here. Bam, bam, bam. Cool. So thank you for hanging around. If you did, this will also go out into the recording email I'll send out today. But we do have some offers for you to make the most, test out what we've said. We've got a conversion audit from Justuno, a free 7-day trial from Lucky Orange, a complimentary customer journey audit from Anzen, 20% off all your monthly plans from GrowWave, and then 1 month free of the paid version plan from Simple Bundles. So using all of these offers, you're able to get into that, affecting ROAS, getting into AOV, and overall increasing engagement so that you have more data to know, okay, what should I show them next? Or what is the next step to get them to that conversion? Thank you to all the speakers for joining today. I really appreciate the insight. I learned a ton from you, and we can let you go from here. Thank you so much.